Hello and welcome to week number 8 of the Zwift Racing League here on Zwift Live. It's team time trial again, but this time it is the last race of the season. I'm Nathan Guerra, and we have had 7 weeks of thrilling racing in the debut season of the Zwift Racing League. But to bring in the final race for the final time, I have the one and only Dave Toll joining me. Dave, it's going to be absolutely awesome racing out here on Watopia's Waistband.
Yeah, it will be, Nathan. 25 kilometers of absolute mayhem out there today. We're going to start with the men. And as we said, this course is going to bring out the very, very best. The time will be taken off of the third rider. Most of the teams here are starting with 5. We've got some real battles going on. It's not just at the top of the table, Nathan, but some teams are fighting for their lives to stay in the Premier League. This is a monster day of racing. It's a short course. It's going to be incredibly intense out there today. When you talk about a little over 25 kilometers of racing, people might think, wow, they should be done in a little over half an hour. And they're right. But it's going to be a painful half hour for all of our top teams. If you want to get a result, you're going to have to hurt yourself today.
Yeah, it's going to be super fast and furious. The teams are going to be fighting for whether or not there's going to be demoted. There's going to be some promotion coming out of the community leagues as well. So a lot of teams will be watching out for that. And then at the top end, there's some battles going on for the podium spots. But last week, we were out in France. Let's go ahead and take a look at the highlights from the points race that we had last week.
Yeah, so as we've been going back and forth, this is a team that's had some results in the team time show as well. That's Vitas. Every time the road went up at Petit Boucle, they were part of the action. Now, these bonus sprints that came along with points were going to be critical out here, and the group was staying together until this first sprint. This is the Aqueduct, and Rick Otema of the Dutch racing team will take maximum bonification there. But then as they make their way by the beautiful lilac fields, you can see, lavender fields, you can see that another sprint going to Simon Collard. And then the late race attacks came fast and furious here, as Elliot Holtham was a rider that was very, very dangerous late into the race. The Canadian here in the final few kilometers riding for the KISS team looked like he had a real chance of staying away, but then the hungry wolves of the peloton were able to nail him back, and then it was a frenetic finale here. Again, in France, we find out who wanted it more, and as this late surge comes, you can see timing those power-ups perfectly, and it was Spencer Sagenbruch taking the win for the Turbo team. So, Nathan, as you can see all those points coming across the line, let's take a look at the table and see how things sorted out, as right now we're looking at where we'll be racing today, but let's see how things stand.
Yeah, and the men's table here for the league standings. Canyon Esports currently sitting in first place, almost unsurmountable at 135 points. SARS the Pros Claus at 129 for second. PO Auto rounds up the top 3. It looks like Bolt Racing Team in 4th place. Evoke Bike presented by Insured at 108 and 109 for that 4th and 5th. Be on the watch out for a battle there in the team time trial today to try and sort that out. Team Swedish Swifters there with 99 points in 6th. Callus Esports Racing Team in 7th. Arrow in 8th. Vitas Pro Cycling presented by Brother there in 9th. And then it's going to be Draft sitting in 10th place. That is your current standings for the top 10. Rounding out the 19, though, it's going to be No Pins R3RE Racing Team in 11th. Dutch Racing in 12th. Turbo sitting in 3rd place. World Elite Zwifters was in 14th place. KISS Racing Team, that's KRT, in 15th. Legion of Los Angeles in 16th place, and then it's going to be Trinity Road Racing, Team Skyline, and Team AHDR, 17th, 18th, and 19th place. So that's the current standings as they are through 7 races. But we are on Watopia Waistband. Let's take a look at what the riders are going to be taking on today in this very somewhat flat course with just a couple little undulations out there, Dave.
Yeah, they do a little more than a complete circuit here. And because of that, we'll have a chance to give you, as you can see, that finish line. Well, that actually will be our first split today as well. There's only 95 meters of climbing on this course. It's going to come down to the true specialists, the teams that have really honed their craft here and bring a sharp-edged sword to this time trial. So the course, well, that's certainly where the race is going to be won, but it's going to be the efforts of the individual athletes out here today that really make the difference. When you look at it, Nathan, the one team that has really stood out is obviously going to be Canyon Esports. They should have this course dialed out here today. We'll see if anybody else can crack that code and come across the line faster out here. We do have 2 intermediate checkpoints today. The official checks at 10.6 kilometers in and 17.9K. So that'll tell us a lot about how things are going out there today on Watopia's Waistband. So it is 1 lap and a little bit of bonus racing out there that make up the 25.5K of today's course. Well, the gladiators of the road, we're down to the 8th race in this 8-race series. This is it. We are almost done and dusted. You know, Nathan, one team pulled out a surprise win. That was Vetus. But it's really been Canyon Esports dominating so far here. Let's take a look at all of the teams racing today.
Yeah, and definitely a good shout out there with Vetus with that upset in race number. I would call it an upset in race number 4. Kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe be on the watch out for them there today. Another shout out I would give is Arrow with an amazing ride just 2 weeks ago, but they're missing their all-star out there today. I believe Jay Vine not taking the start line, racing over the weekend, took a win in real life in a TT, but without that, type of power coming from Vine, maybe a little bit of a struggle. But let's go ahead and take a look at the top teams, the top 3 so far as we stand coming into race number 8. And this is going to be Canyon Esports. Gary Mueller here, Philip Diner there, Alex West, Ali Jones, and Lionel Viasin. This is your top team. Been absolutely unstoppable, and they really put together the reality of knowing the game and the experience and the pure power that it takes to be able to take down races in Zwift. So Canyon Esports, one of the most committed teams out there in the world of Zwift, and then is currently sitting in 2nd place overall.
Yeah, and these teams don't have a lot to lose out here today when you talk about 2nd and 3rd, so they can really race for the outright win and the pride that would come along with that. This is going to be the PO Auto Ceramic Speed team. Now, Nicholas Pedersen there in the middle has already had an individual win. We go back and forth each week from the points racing to the team time trial, and here we are in our final team time trial. You can see the team has, every one of these riders, it's a balanced squad with a tremendous amount of power here, is all of them Danish as well. So this is a very strong unit out there. And in my opinion, Nathan, this is the team that has the best chance, I would say, to shock Canyon Esports today, because they come in hungry to leave the season making one final mark with yet another win. The other team that we're going to be looking for, a team that has quite an international lineup, as this is Ceres the Pros Closet. You can see the American Ryan Larson. This is a motivated team as well. Gavin Dempster led this squad to a win earlier this season in the beginning of the COVID lockdown era. Dan Fleeman there comes in with World Tour experience, one of the brightest minds and biggest engines in the sport, Mike Cumming and Matt Kerbeau. So that's a squad that if they do get the win, it'll be well earned. And they come in hungry, and they're a team that would love to lick their plate clean after 25.5 kilometers out here today. The other team, Nathan, as we look at our top 3 squads on the table, the Swedish Zwifters come in with a little bit of momentum as well, having just won the World Time Trial Championship presented by WTRL. So that's a good look at the teams to watch. Your favorite squads are all going to be out on course here in a moment. It's a big day of racing, Nathan, as we're here. It's the finale, and it is on like Donkey Kong out here in Watopia as it's time for ZRL's final race of the Premier League.
Yeah, let's go ahead down to the racing action as it is just opening up. We are out on course here, it looks like, with Team AHDR, Cutler, Nozaki, and it looks like with a little bit of a kick. We will have an initial checkpoint out there to see how fast these riders do take off. They're going to be about 1K in through that first sprint point. So it'll be interesting to see who starts off the quickest, because in a team time trial, it definitely matters how quickly you get off the line. Those initial seconds, getting organized. A lot of times, Dave, I've seen teams try and go out a little bit tempered to try and make sure they all stay together. That tactic may work well to make sure that you get off together. But the reality is you all know how to kick 8, 9, 10 watts per kilogram, and getting that speed right from the gun, it really does matter for those precious seconds in a team time trial.
Without any doubt, you really do look to set a schedule here, and getting out quick is the name of the game. There really isn't a conservative game plan that the top three teams will have out here today. So as we look, the teams are starting in reverse order based on their performances in the past, based on the 7 races they've already done here in the ZRL. So our top teams will be out on course last. But Nathan, we're calling it the whole shot for a good reason. That beautiful arch out here on Watopia. We get a kind of a bonus time check out here today. You should be familiar with the term whole shot, being a mountain biker. That's the first race in the race, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about getting to the single track first. A little bit differently, though, obviously, as well as in cyclocross, it is about getting to the first corner or the first split that might be happening for the lead group first. A lot of times, whole shot has to do with the reality of a course going to a pinpoint, coming to a point in which not so many riders can come on through. But in this situation, I think that the whole shot also matters to know whether or not you're setting the right kind of speed and time up front. Whether or not you've lost time in the first kilometer just from how you started is going to really matter out there. Now, we are taking a look at the KISS Racing team. It's going to be Sarah, Hodden, Britt, Ward, as well as Holtham. Holtham we saw very aggressive last week, and now we do see him on the front here taking a solid pull, it looks like. Now, on this section of course, know this course very well for team time trial. It's been used so many times. One of the flatter roads in the world of all of Zwift worlds, actually, but of Watopia as well. 50 kilometers per hour is that sweet spot. It really is amongst the men racing. You're going to be looking for whether or not they can hold that down. 49 to 50 kilometers per hour is kind of the known winning speed. So we'll be watching out for whether or not these riders are able to hold down that kind of speed and to see what kind of times they can pull through. As Ward comes through, 7 watts per kilogram on the front, and that's what you need to throw down to be competitive here in a team time trial against the likes of Canyon Esports and the rest.
Yeah, this is a really good start for KISS. They got on the gas early here. And what's also encouraging is you can see as Ward finishes up his pull there that his heart rate isn't out of control either. So these guys are riding within themselves, finding their rhythm out here very quickly. And yeah, you're not going to see today, Nathan, especially when we get into the top teams out here, anywhere near as much of that mob style, or the blob, as our Australian friends call it. It's the single file classic technique that's going to be successful out here on this course. It is very straight ahead. As we mentioned, there's not a lot of climbing out here. This is a pure team time trial course and a great way to wrap up the ZRL.
4.2 kilometers in, 23.5 to go. As you can see, Britt on the front, Robert, 409 watts, 6.5 watts per kilogram. They'll be keeping it steady there, it looks like, at the right kind of speed that they need. They start now coming on through from Slovenia on that. Look at that setup here. He's got the 858s, it looks like. I believe he's rolling through perhaps on the new Canyon bike. I have to can't quite see it what to make out on there, but the 858's always the fastest. Actually, look at all between them all. Interesting to see they are all using the super fast 858s. Those are the fastest wheels out on Zwift when it comes to the flatter courses. You are seeing a couple other riders here also with a similar setup, and that's going to be the World Elite Zwifters now. Taking a pull through, it looks like it's going to be Kershaw, Jimmy Kershaw. There's 7 watts per kilogram again. That is that number that you're going to be looking for, and then just to sit in 5.1, 175, 183 beats per minute now, as you can see here. So heart rate's already starting to skyrocket with 4 riders out on course.
Yeah, you want to talk about full gas early on. These guys are flying. Again, that's Lewis Moore, Louis Zayas, the Brazilian Almeida Franklin, and Jimmy Kershaw. So this team has had success without any doubt as they step up into the Premier League, the highest level of competition that we have ever seen. They, for a while, were one of the top squads, and they still are one of the top squads in the WTRL, the team time trial that takes place on Thursdays. But they're looking to find a top 5 result, and this start certainly bodes well for that. Although, Nathan, it is worth noting that not every team is starting with 5 riders, and that's going to make a difference on a course like today. It's going to be so intense out there as you're taking your pull. Everybody's going to need a little bit of a break, and these guys get less of that, a little bit more time with your nose in the wind. So we're going to have to stay motivated out here as we're, again, with the World Elite Zwifting team right now. But I think we're going to get a chance to take a look at Turbo. And there is Spencer Segerbrook. We saw him in our highlights of last week's race over at Petit Boucle as he takes the win out of a reduced bunch sprint. Let's see how Turbo's doing here. They've got a strong squad, Nathan.
Yeah, they do, and you do see that they are being caught, though, by Dutch Racing here at this point. There's going to be a quick little pass, and this is a perfect section to catch them on. Now, this is a section, of course, that a lot of riders might not know that does have a 1 to 2% uphill gradient. It's very short, but it matters because that kind of a gradient you can carry a ton of speed through. So a real ramp up of the watts per kilogram through this section, carry the speed up and over the top, almost attacking this section of the course will really benefit on the downhill because this 1%, 2% downhill now, you can actually carry 53 plus kilometers per hour if you really pull hard on the front. Empel, though, trying to hold on, and this speed they're going to be taking through this section will put somebody in the hurt locker if they are not right on the wheel. And you can see Empel struggling because you know that Oost is on the front trying to do everything he can to take advantage of this section. Of course, Empel's just going to have to bite the bullet, though, and bring that back.
Yeah, that's Etienne Van Empel right there showing tremendous heart to fight back up into the slipstream. That was a little bit more of a moment than most people would realize. It's very subtle, but he obviously just going through maybe a moment of inattentiveness out there. And this is really your biggest danger is this Dutch team is absolutely flying right now. Dutch Racing is the squad. Rick Otema, Just van der Bosch, Michael Volts, Jasper Okerloin, and then we mentioned Etienne a little bit earlier. So Nathan, obviously, is they've already caught the squad that started in front of them, and they're only a little over 6 kilometers in. This is an outstanding ride from one of our lower seeded teams here, so we'll keep an eye. This is obviously the benchmark time. I imagine as we get our first real split checks at 10.6K, this will be one of our fastest times early, and this might stack up to being one of the 5 fastest times that we see out here today, where the Dutch Racing team is racing. Very, very good job. And that's Etienne taking his pole now, Nathan. So that's interesting, isn't it? That he was dangling off the back there just a minute ago, but he's back on the front. So that definitely speaks more to rather than a hiccup in the power, a hiccup in attentiveness, I would say. But everything looks to be copacetic right now for the Dutch boys.
I'd be watching out for Dutch Racing. This is a team that I've seen the WTRL TTT really have some amazing results. I think it's kind of been on the back burner for some reason for them for a little while. So we'll have to wait and see if Dutch Racing can pull out something out of the hat here in the final race. Maybe get a little bit of an extra motivation for this final race to try and show up and throw down. Now we're going to be with no pins R3R, Braley toward the back, it looks like. We found it out on the front there. Scott Gleason's there taking a little bit of a rest after a pull. It looks like Liam Bard's there, 166 beats per minute there. The pulling through, though, coming from Klaus, 7 watts per kilogram, 500 watts there from the R3R no pins rider, actually. And they are flying along currently right around that 50 kilometer per hour mark, it looks like. Liam Barzi comes through at about 51. So they're doing steady speeds currently and getting a solid time through this flatter section as they're 7K in. Again, this is such a fast race out here today. At 27K, this is going to be done and dusted before we even know it. And I think the riders here, they can risk everything with these kind of a pulls because you only have to come through with 3 riders. So the reality of pulling at 7 watts per kilogram and blowing up is an option here earlier than you would usually expect, I would think, Dave.
Yeah, everything really is intensified, Nathan. You make a really good point. Anytime that you have a team time trial that's less than 30 kilometers, well, one thing is for sure is that the danger of losing a rider early is you're almost already into the mid part of a standard team time trial when you look at where these guys are now. So if they have to lose a rider, so be it. You could soldier on with 4, but less than 4 and it gets really dangerous because any one rider gets a technical and then you've got 0 wiggle room left. And I think, Nathan, for you look at it now, I have a feeling that a lot of these teams have decided that they're going to go all in for their result today and not worry about being defensive and trying to protect a position that they've got in the overall table and just try to get a great result out of this final time trial. A lot of work has gone into this ZRL season, that's for sure, as we're jumping in with the draft team now. Bruce Bird, Jed Scott, Penn Henderson, Ross Fawcett, and Rich Sim here. And all 5 together, very familiar red kit, another real international team, couple Scottish riders on this squad. Nathan, as I said, nobody's going to be looking to do the blob out here today. It's really about this formation or something close to this, as these guys are still just trying to find their rhythm out here now.
Yeah, and also with the number of riders that are in the Premier Division, you do have the reality of not really being able to blob up too well. You'd have to essentially, the blob formation only really works when you have more than that many riders, because you have 3 riders on the front taking a certain kind of role, always kind of rider on deck, rider taking a pull. The rider on deck has a rider behind them getting ready to be the rider on deck, and then everybody behind can kind of blob up a little bit and even pull through at times to try and cover things. You can't really do that quite as well with only 5, so you do end up with a little bit more straightforward single file line with less riders. But now Vitus Pro Cycling, they are flying out here. I just saw a moment ago 51 kilometers per hour steadily through the last flat section. This team has almost caught team draft. I'm not sure I saw that kind of speed from any other team so far. Be on the watch out for another upset out here for Vitus Pro Cycling. Now, of course, we haven't seen Sarsa Pro's Closet, Canyon Esports, and PO Auto, our 3 strongest teams so far in this league, but we did see that upset in race number 4, and if they have a similar race out here today, be on the watch out for Vitus to take the win, perhaps.
Yeah, they're the only team that has cracked that code, Nathan. And again, they don't come in as one of the top 5 teams, you might discount them, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. If there's ever a team that's going to upset the apple cart, that would be Vitus. We're in with Arrow now, and they're already down to 3 riders. Remembering that this team, you mentioned at the top of the show that Jay Vine was unable to take the start due to some in real life commitments. So that's going to have a huge impact on this team, because Nathan, they come in as one of the teams that has been proving themselves to be the best in this discipline, but losing Jay Vine, that's more than significant. I think that if you want to retarget or recalibrate for this team, if they can find the top 3 today for these 3 gentlemen, that's above and beyond.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough day with only 3 riders too. Think of each one of the riders that you have out there when it comes to just thinking about your own times that you're able to throw down, as far as what kind of times you need to put at the front. You have that much less rest. You look at this and you think, oh, well, it's just a little less horsepower. No, that means that you're taking that many more pulls. There's only so much energy that you have in the tank, and that means you're draining the tank that much sooner. So with situations like this, it makes for a very difficult day for Arrow with only 3 riders.
Let's take a look at our fastest times there. We talked about the bonus check, and this is it. Thank you very much, as this is going to be interesting. Vitus sitting there. Well, so 2:48, 2 minutes and 48 seconds to get through, let's call it 2.2 kilometers to what we were referring to as the whole shot there. So we still have a few teams that have to yet get through that point, but Bolt with the fastest time at 2:48, but you can see how close this is. It's less than 2 seconds back to Vitus, so they confirm a very good start there. Dutch Racing obviously were flying. They're sitting in 3rd, and then Evoke, Saris, those are the teams making up our top 5 right now. Actually, Nathan, I apologize. It looks like just about everybody should be through that split, because I'm already seeing Saris and PO Auto here. So now I start wondering, where is our Canyon Esports? There they are, 6 right now, 4:25 back. But remembering, they've got a bit of padding right now in their lead, so they don't have to win today to win the series. But you know that pride is going to play a huge role for Canyon, Nathan. They don't come here to do anything but win today.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how fast teams go out through there, and then also comparing it to the top teams. You do see a lot of the top teams right around the middle of that leaderboard when it comes to the start times. So we'll be hitting up the intermediate here in just a moment. Callis are about to catch Team Arrow here. Morton Vang, it looks like, taking a little bit of a pull toward the 6 watts per kilogram right now. 6.8 from Ovind there, it looks like. And this section, of course, it is about a 3% uphill grade and flattens out a little bit here as Jerksis now takes a pull, and then it kicks again before they take the left-hand turn away from Titans Grove and on down toward Watopia Mountain and Ocean Boulevard. There's a split that will be taken after a little land bridge. So be interesting to see as Vang now pulls on through at 7 watts per kilogram to try and get right past Arrow. We're going to speed things up a little bit. Arrow will probably slow down just a tad as they take this left-hand turn, and they'll be hitting the first intermediate section to see what their time is going to be through there with just 17.2K to go and 10.5 kilometers in. There's the left-hand turn and a little banner for their checkpoint number 1.
And we'll start collecting times from that checkpoint as you get a good look at, really, Nathan, you make a good point about 5 riders isn't really enough to run the blob formation. And this is a really good example of what happens when you poke the bears. Now the Australians who were just past, well, they didn't like that very much. And now they're going to try to get past. If we go back to checkpoint 1, this is the Swedish Zwifters that we're looking at, but it's a little bit of argy-bargy going on back there. It's always tough when you pass a team and then they start repassing. Back to you, Nathan.
Yeah, now we're jumping on with Evoke now. Neil Offenfeld. Thrall is in there as well, and it'll be interesting to see what Thrall... Look at that cadence there from Thrall. It's always this kind of slow, tight cadence as they're now going downhill, though it's going to speed up just a little bit there. Collar now looks like moving maybe to the front. No, Offenfeld now actually moving forward. Now we're back with Northern from the Swedish Zwifters now. As it looks like for Team Swedish Zwifters, 29 seconds back, 7th place currently. Kiss Racing Team 27, No Pins R3R 26. So it's really tight between 5th, 6th, and 7th place. A little ways back is going to be Callis and Draft battling it out for 8th and 9th. But it's Bolt Racing Team at the top currently, 3 seconds faster than Vetus. But reality is, we're going over to Saris the Pros Classic as well as Canyon Esports still to come through. PO Auto's probably right in the mix with these 3 still, as they are just heading into their intermediate now. I have a feeling we're about to see PO Auto jump onto this leaderboard because they should be just a little ways ahead of this Saris the Pros Closet, and Canyon Esports are chasing them probably at the bottom of this climb right now with them just off in the distance here, as we do see the matching wattages that you usually do see on a climb section. Everybody's got to put out the same usually through these, and then it's going to be whoever's the strongest and has a little bit of something left through the downhill as they come through check number 1.
Yeah, and this is that check that Nathan's talking about, and I have a feeling we're going to see some, we're going to keep refreshing that leaderboard. We're going back to Canyon Esports right now. This team has been absolutely dominant throughout the season. They've won 2 of the 3 team time trials that we've already contested, and Nathan, yeah, so they're going to be quicker than Saris the Pros Closet just based on your naked eye there. They are honing in on the team they started right behind. These are the big dogs, no doubt about it when you take a look at Canyon Esports. This team has got the bit between their teeth, absolutely flying, and there it is. Your new fast time at that check is a 13:09, but it is very, very close. Bolt is right there. Vita's sitting in 3rd. The surprise here to me is that Saris has moved back to 5th. Is Evoke sitting in 4th right now. Dutch Racing confirming the good start that they had, and they're actually faster than another Dutch team, PO Auto there, Danish team, PO Auto there, sitting in 7th. No Pins R3R at that first check in 8th. Kiss, and then Team Swedish rounding out our top 10, and the next check comes up pretty quickly here, 17.9K in. So intermediate 1, Canyon showing you why they're the best of the best.
We've seen this once before, though. Bolt Racing Team, less than a second. I mean, it's up for grabs still for that first place, obviously, there with only Vetus 3 seconds behind right there. 9 seconds for Evoke. We have a race on our hands. Canyon are not walking away with this one. And both racing team, we've seen it from them before where they've challenged for that first place. We've seen it also in the community racing with WTRL TTTs on Thursday where both racing team have taken down some top spots. They've told me in some messaging actually before that they have a secret to the TTT, that they've really figured out the gamification side of it, and perhaps that's what's bringing them to the top here. There is so much tactics. There is a lot of moment-to-moment changes you have to follow with the pixels. And both racing team, they've done their homework, I think, and we'll have to wait and see if that can pull off up against the reality of the power of Canyon Esports out there today.
I love that, Nathan. Even the head games that time trialists will play with each other, where one rider will allude to some secret speed that he has found out there and let all the others wonder how he's done it. And maybe there was nothing at all. It might be just vapor, right? And you keep that conversation going as these guys take it incredibly seriously. We're in with PO Auto Ceramic Speed. Now, they are really going to be looking to move up the table here from that first checkpoint. A little bit of a disappointing start, I would say, for the Danish riders. So let's see if they can find a little bit more to wind in their sails at this point. Nathan, the thing that's interesting today, and I have a feeling our top 3 teams are going to be within 5 seconds of each other by the time that this one is put paid at the finish line after 25.5 kilometers. Now, there's not a lot of course to make a difference on, as everybody here is pretty much got the accelerator down on the floorboard and is leaving it there. But this is not encouraging at all, as big gaps opening up in the Bolt team. Nathan, what's going on here?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to this right here specifically. This section, of course, is so important to keep things together because it's like riding through mud and through this section. Have you ever ridden cyclocross or mountain bike or anything, and you get into some sort of section of dirt that's got just enough dampness in it that it kind of pulls on the tires? Well, that's what this section of course is like. You have this where the riders have to be right on the wheel to get draft, and even that draft is not a whole lot through this section. And because of that, Nicky Hug, one of the strongest, him and Davies, I think, really the leaders when it comes to pure power on this team, and they have split their team apart. This is disorganization, and the reality is that the riders behind, they need to close it down because they cannot slow down and wait at this point. If they want to hold on to that top spot, if they want to challenge Canyon Esports today, they were only 0.3 second less. They were less than a tenth of, or what was 0.3 of a second behind at the last checkpoint. They cannot wait for anybody holding back at this point. They just got to press on with only half the course left to go. They may be able to do it still. Now look at this. This is perfection. Viasen, Ollie Jones, Diner coming right on through, and they're all right on the wheel. No separation after that little grind out of Ocean Boulevard's underwater tunnel.
What a huge difference is you're looking at the Vanguard, the King's Guard here. That is as good as it gets. If you were to take a snapshot of this moment here, that is perfect team time trialing. This squad is going to be unbeatable today. No doubt about it in my... Nathan, look at Canyon. Again, they just went through the one of the 3 challenging sectors out on this course and absolutely dusted. So we're going to go back and take a look at the very, very front of the race now, as Canyon clearly putting on a clinic out here today on Watopia's Waistband.
Yeah, this is going to be T. Cutler here. Now this is going to be the AHDR team still leading things out. Good on them, and they were the first, I believe, to head out on course. Solid 6.1 watts per kilogram currently coming from Cutler as they fly on through at 47.8. This is a really good time still coming in from AHDR. Solid speed as well, with only 3 riders on the day. Really hats off to them. Kudos to them. Cutler 6.4 watts per kilogram, putting the other riders though in a little bit of a trouble. And when you only got 3, a lot of times your rest ends up being a struggle in and of itself, as you can see Nozaki just trying to bring Madsen back to the wheel now, up and out of the saddle, 159 beats per minute. And you can tell a lot of suffering here currently coming from Nozaki though, 5.5 watts per kilogram. We'll see what they can pull off for a time here. And again, with only 3 riders, this is a really great effort as they are holding off the KISS Racing team by a solid minute still, it looks like.
All right, we're going to jump in with the Vitas team now. So They're down to 3 here as well. Mottram, McGlinchey, and Kenway. So, and about the same, actually, they're about to make a catch here, Nathan. So this team is having a strong ride. It's not going to be enough to upset the apple cart, but they're catching R3R no pins right now. And it's not often that you're going to see this. 3 riders catching a full squad of 5. And you have to remember that these teams have been seeded based on their previous performances as well. So this is an unbelievable ride from 3, considering it's like the movie 300, right? I mean, they are going up against a team that has significantly more horsepower. They're making that catch, and they're going to go right through them like a hot knife through butter here. Actually, this is 2 different teams that we're looking at together. We've got quite a cluster here.
Yeah, and it looks like Vitas is catching both Turbo and No Pins at the same time as Turbo was being caught, I believe, by No Pins. So interesting enough to see No Pins is flying to catch Turbo, but Vitas is going even faster as McGlinchey pulls out 9 watts per kilogram as they go through the 2-tier into the volcano with only 3 riders, but they've got the kind of power here to hold almost 45 kilometers per hour on the uphill here. So I still wouldn't be counting them out for a top 3 perhaps, because they are having a stellar ride, but with only 3, the back end of this course can be very difficult, Dave.
Yeah, what a bizarre situation where if you're the team in the middle, right? Where you're like, good, we're having a great ride. We're going to catch our team in front of us. And then you're like, well, wait, look behind. We're getting caught. It is bananas out here today around the waistband. But Nathan, I got to give it up to these 3. They might not win the race, but they're certainly winning some fans. And again, Christopher McGlinchey is a rider that you'll be able to cheer on at the World Championships, as he's going to be representing Ireland there, the only Irish male rider in the world. So certainly McGlinchey, always fun to watch. As we're going back now, it's going to be riders all over the shop at this point, Nathan. So it's amazing, isn't it, that this 25.5K is doing this kind of damage? Let's go back and join Cyrus the Pros Closet.
Yeah, and it looks like Bolt Racing Team losing a spot there. 8 seconds behind now, interesting enough. So at that intermediate check 2, 18K in. As I said, through that section of courses, they went through the marina. The reality of the disorganization that the Bolt Racing Team had, that was a huge loss of time there. You can see that 8 seconds that they lost through that. Now Vitas, though, gaining 2 spots. Obviously, the drop-off of a couple of athletes was a gain for them, though, as they just allowed their speed to take them on through the first half of the course. But Canyon coming through, 12 seconds up for Vitas, most likely still all together. Cyrus actually dropping back, it looks like, for this checkpoint currently, 22 seconds back. So interesting to see as we jump back in with Canyon Esports here now. 9.5 kilometers to go, 18.3 in, and they have 12 seconds over Vitas. And with Vitas only having 3 riders left, I think the reality is that they're going to start burning out a little bit. A lot of matches burned with only 3 riders, and they have a lot more rest, a lot more in the containers here to hold on to and just push on through, as I think they're just going to come away with a dominating performance.
Yeah, Vitas is going to be running on fumes. They're already tapping the gauge to see how much gas is in the tank here. It's a short course today, but they are at a high burn rate, no doubt about it. P.O. Auto, now, Nathan, that's going to come down to tenths of seconds when you look at second place. I almost say today, it's almost like dog years compared to human years, the seconds out here. 1 second is like 7 seconds, to tell you the truth, because that 12 seconds that you see for this team, Canyon, I have a feeling that they might have done enough, considering the fact now that they still look brilliant out here. Although they have lost 1 rider at this point, Nathan, that's nothing to worry about, as they're down inside of 8.5K to go. So let's go ahead and jump in now as we say goodbye to Canyon. Everybody, it looks like, no, not quite. I thought these guys were down to 4, but they still have 5 as we're back in with Cyrus the Pros Closet. That might make a difference here. I don't think it's going to be enough to catch Canyon, but it looks like they're finding one of the draft riders, I believe. They're going by here. Left his team a little bit earlier.
You know, Dave, I think I wouldn't count them. Okay, so there may be a tactic here, Dave. Dempster, Caribou, Fleeman, these are very, very strong athletes. And the reality is they might be playing it smart. You know, I know that Canyon, they've got a dominating lead right now. You know, it would be a long shot. But the scenario I'm speaking of here is with 5 riders, the amount of speed that you can take through those final Ks of this course with 5 riders. You have the downhill into the pier section through the traditional old school Watopia hilly start finish line. That is very flat, a lot of speed with 5 riders through there. That extra rider will matter, especially if you can throw down 9-10 watts per kilometer on a sprint, get some riders into an aero tuck at 57 plus, and then from there, you've got a couple of undulations of the left-hand turn back on over to Fuego Flats. You pull super hard through the bridge and the dirt, back onto a flat section with an extra rider. I don't think it can bring back 22 seconds. I think that's about where they were at, but I think it bring back some time. If there's any mishaps here, and if anyone's suffering from a very fast time on Canyon here, let's see what SARS pulls off here, because they are a top esports team. So I'd be surprised if they weren't reserving something for the back end of this course.
See, my point would be you can't reserve anything on this course. You had to be full gas from the start, which Canyon has done. I don't think that you had any chance to be conservative out here today. But you know what? That's why we have them race all the way to the finish line, right? I'm going to be interested to see if they can make up any time on Canyon. This team is so well drilled. As a matter of fact, it looks like they're about to catch a squad right in front of them here. And this, for the other teams, is the scenario that you really want to avoid, is giving them any extra motivation, and that's what they've got right now. Once a team like Canyon has got a squad in front of them, they find another 1% because they are going to be motivated to make that catch, and that's the last thing you want, is to give these guys even more motivation. That's like motivating King Kong.
Yeah, and I might be about to eat my words a little bit there, because I believe they are catching SARS the Pros Cloud actually. So the reality is that Canyon Esports are just on another level. Line of the Austin was just pulling 7 watts per kilogram on the front end at 50 kilometers per hour, where Cyrus is doing somewhere around 48 or so. So the speed difference, it's just the reality of it. Now we are heading back in with AHDR. They're about to finish up their race here with 824 meters to go to the line. They're going to be seeing that sprint section here. And AHDR going to be the first ones across the line, able to hold off any of the chasers. As we look at Corbin Patridge there, it's going to be Tim Cutler and Naofumi Nozaki to the line. It's going to be Corbin Patridge Madsen, there. And they're currently throwing down a solid 50 kilometers per hour, actually. They got a 45-second gap currently still over the KISS Racing Team. KISS Racing Team, I believe KRT, were able to pull back 15 seconds from them, but we'll see if that stands as they sprint to the line at 6.6 to 7 watts per kilogram. Solid last effort with only 3 riders. This is, again, a solid effort by HDR, showing up with a couple extra, less bodies than the rest of the teams out there today.
Yeah, that's a lot of courage, no doubt, as the finish line can't come soon enough. There is the arch with an arch inside of it, double arch finish, and there you are, done and dusted. So now it's going to be teams coming across this line, non-stop hits here. This is going to be KRT that we're looking at. There's a name we've become familiar with this year, Holtham, the Canadian, as this squad, bringing 5 to the line here, Nathan.
Yeah, it's a solid race here coming in from Elliot Holtham as he leads them out. I think one of the stronger of the crew. Andrew Hollidan, also a very good sprinter, coming through at about 8 watts per kilogram. We're going to lead things out for the rest of their team, it looks like now, as they bring all 5 to the line. Solid time from them out here today. And we'll see what they were able to pull off. But I believe it is going to be being chased down by the Dutch Racing Team that are going to be the next to come across the line. I'm not sure if they started out there third. I believe they did catch a couple of the other teams out there today. So I have a feeling that the Dutch Racing Team may be a little bit better time out there than the KISS Racing Team. We'll have to wait and see as we are waiting on some of the time splits to come on through. But we are looking at Evan Empel here now with 4 riders left in the Dutch Racing Team. There's the catch I was talking about here. And as I said, I was eating my words there, Dave. You're 100% right. As Canyon Esports, they put in a full-on VO2 or more, almost sprinting at the front each and every time. Here's that left-hand turn, a little bit of a grind now. It's going to be keeping things together even more difficult through this section. They're going to have to full-on sprint across here as it does get kind of sticky through this section to keep the speed high, but it looks like they made it happen. All four coming right on through.
Yeah, and the pride that Sarah's the Pros Closet showing right now is these guys are not used to being caught, but they need to back off a little bit as right now this is Canyon's day. They're the kings of esports at this point, and you can see there Saris is doing exactly that. Is the etiquette here, much like golf, there's an etiquette to team time trialing as well, and the overtaking team has the right to a clear passage there, as you don't want any cross-pollination. You're looking at an incredible ride. It looks like we're back in with Skyline now, as that's going to be Adam Carr bringing their team across the line, an all-American squad here finishing up. And now we're back in with Vitas. This is an interesting ride out here today, Nathan, and they are going to bring three across the line. Can they find the top three today? It's going to be close, and you can see now we have a new feature with those arrows showing you how the teams, as we get more teams across the line, it'll show you how they've been doing in relation to the others in the final kilometer here. But Vitas will have the fastest time up to this point.
Yeah, Dutch Racing, now as you do see, they did move up one place in that final kilometer, actually. So as you do see, Vitas there with the 34.26. Evo comes flying by the No Pins R3R rider that's off the back from his team. Here's Canyon now making their way into that final K. Wow, this is very tight racing. Everybody's finishing just back to back to back here now, as you can see. And as you do see, World Elite Zwifters, they moved up 2 spots in the last K. Team HDR there 2 spots. Team Skyline 3 spots now. And we do see Turbo now sprinting to the line here, as it's going to be, I would assume, Sagerbrook on the front there, leading out Zuhab. As now we are in with Team Draft, making their way to line with Bruce Bird. The big bird, as we like to call him in the community races a lot of times, with the big watts on the front right now.
And all right, so again, that 34.26 from Vitas is the fast time under the arch there. Dutch Racing at 22 seconds back. That time from Vitas really solid. Again, remembering they finished with 3 riders here. They basically went with 3 riders for more than half of the race. We'll update these times. It's really cool having this feature. Swedish Zwifters had a good week. It's there now into the last K or so of racing, but the real story now is going to be, how does that Vitas time stack up against Canyon Esports? I'm very interested. Canyon Esports was on a day today, no doubt about it, but did Vitas find the top 3? It's possible. You know, that's the question, Nathan. Is Vitas's time going to be better than Saris the Pros Closet?
Well, after catching out there today, and Vitas, they had a time that was way ahead of Saris the Pros Closet. I thought maybe Saris the Pros Closet was going to come out and have a better second half of the race, but I don't think that that's kind of coming to fruition. I have a feeling that Vitas just had a walkaway ride, and Crispin Glinchy, Mikey Motram out there just really pulling things to the line there as we jump back in with Evoke. And Evoke, I think, also a team maybe having a good second half of their races. They seem to be really flying out there today, too. Trying to take a look here, and it does look like they're pulling a solid 52 kilometers per hour to the line here. They made up a good amount of time over Callis, so be on the watch out for Evoke perhaps to be a surprise, as Pio Auto with Pedersen now coming to the line.
Yeah, it looks like Nicholas is going to bring them home here with one final surge. They've been chasing a team out here for the last few K. You can see them just up the road, so a couple teams will be done and dusted here in the next few seconds, and that doesn't leave that many teams still out on course. The women getting ready to race, they're all in the start house right now, so don't go anywhere. We've got quite the double bill for you today, but it looks like Canyon and Lionel Viassen, the Belgian on the team, is going to bring them home. The South African, the Australian, and the Belgian here on this international combine. Lionel Viassen, one of the best hopes for our community racers to, rather than the World Tour pros, to possibly take out a UCI World Championship coming up on December 9th. But this is the gold standard. This is actually the unobtainium standard that we're looking at right now. Nobody has done what Canyon has done. That's Saris right behind, obviously getting caught, poked the bear a little bit, as at this point now they've just locked in at the same ride as Canyon Esports, but these 3 are the best in the world right now.
Now, looking at the times coming on in, Bolt Racing Team, they did fall behind by a good amount of seconds there after some disorganization. It looks like 33 seconds back. Now, the question is, we saw at the top Vetus taken down by PO Auto. Will Vetus stay in the top three? They did. They took down Cyrus the Pros Closet, it looks like. They're Canyon Esports, obviously, with a walk-away ride there, showing why they are dominating, coming on into this race. PO Auto Ceramic Speed there, taking down second place, and it looks like Vetus there for third. Cyrus the Pros Closet coming in for fourth. It'll be interesting how that changes up maybe any of the overalls. We'll have to wait and see how the points calculation ends up. But Dutch Racing Team comes on through for fifth. Bolt Racing Team there in sixth with a falling behind there in the second half of the race. Evoke presented by Insured there. Seventh place, very close, only 1 second back from both racing teams. Team Swedish Swifters for eighth, Kiss Racing Team in ninth, and then Callus Esport Racing Team in 10th place. I think we may be looking at the top 20 or 19 here as we walk into the as we wait for the women to get out on course, and we take a look at how things played out last week, as well as we introduce our women's race in just a moment here. But really solid racing all around here, Dave. Vetus, we said beforehand, be on the watch out for them, and they dropped some riders early on. I mean, we saw halfway through only 3 riders, and I think Mikey Mochman and Christian McGlinchey showed that they've got some crazy power at 5.23 watts per kilogram. They had to do that with only that many bodies on course.
Yeah, Adam had a heck of a ride as well. Vetus is now talking to the commissioner of the Zwift Racing League saying, let's go ahead and just do all team time trials. If that were the case, they'd be certainly one of the 3 best teams. They won one, another third. But so I guess for them, Nathan, it's going to be figuring out how to crack the code in the points racing, as season 2 will be coming up in January. And Vetus is a team that I'd be keeping my eye on for sure. You know, bike racing, they call it a cruel mistress, right? It'll always break your heart as well. And that was the day for Saris, the Pros Closet, just not quite having what they've been bringing to the start line week in, week out. Just the legs weren't there today for one of the best teams in the world. They'll be back, that's for sure. But Nathan, let's go back and take a look at some of the action that we had throughout a great day of racing out on Watopia's Waistband. 27.5 kilometers of racing made up the course today. They say there were 95 meters of climbing, Nathan, out there. I didn't really see it. There's a couple pitches, but it's basically a pure test for our team time trials, as it looks like, well, one of the early overtakings out there is Callus going by Arrow here. Shows you one of the first catches we saw today.
And it's going to be Morton Vang on the front, coming on through our first intermediate check. But that intermediate check, first through, it was Canyon Esports, very closely followed by the Bolt Racing Team. But on the second half of the race, it was Vetus to take over that second spot. But then PO Auto coming on through on the back end of it there. And yeah, very odd moment here, Dave, as there was a couple of different teams being caught at the same time.
Yeah, that's the first time that it was like watching a medium-sized fish eating a small fish and then getting eaten by a bigger fish. One of those moments out there, as we're now taking a look at the team that took the win out here today, and as we're working up our provisional results based upon final verification, this is the gold standard without any doubt, Canyon Esports. And Nathan, that's no surprise. Coming into the season, I think that they were the odds-on favorite to take it all, and they certainly didn't disappoint. As we get a look at them making the catch, almost like poking a beehive there. No, Saris, the Pros Closet, did not enjoy being caught by Canyon.
Yeah, and it definitely was rewarding for an all-around team, too. You really had to be able to bring everything you could to the table, and we do see that with Canyon Esports, and that's why they were able to walk away, I think, with this. As, you know, a team like Saris, the Pros Closet, they can take down a lot of sprints, a lot of points, maybe a scratch race, also with Evoke. With Thrall as well as PO Auto, taking a lot of across the line scratch races. But the reality is the Canyon Esports are the most consistent when it comes to speed, power, and tactics in the world of esports and Zwift racing. So I think that's exactly why they ended up being the strongest because you got to show up with the team and you got to show up with a knowledge and the power that you need in order to take down this kind of a league. Now we're going to jump in and see how things are for the standings. Now these will be provisional, but the standings, they'll be coming up in just a moment for how things stacked up at the end of our season number 1 in the Premier Division in this awesome series here for the Zwift Racing League, Dave.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I've loved this since the first pedal stroke was turned on week 1. We've gone back and forth between the points racing and the team time trials. And what a great way to wrap it up is this team concept that we race with here. It's points based. 20 points is the maximum that you could take for a day. And in our women's race coming up, there's a chance that Heino could run the table here, taking 20 points from all 8 races. But they've got one more race left to do that, and I know that they've got some teams coming for them. So, Nathan, as they are confirming those results right now, looking back on this season for the men, and it was an absolute blast. There's no doubt about it. I know the team's already champing at the bit, getting ready for what will soon be announced, Season 2 coming up in 2021. We've got a lot to look forward to, but we're not done yet. As the women are warming up, they're back now in the start house, getting ready to hit out. But Nathan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the men's season, the 8 races. What was your takeaway?
Yeah, well, the takeaway obviously being that it takes a lot of different kinds of racing, a lot of tactics. The reality that this is not just an exercise competition is something we definitely are pulling out of this sport of esports, the sport of Zwift racing. It's pretty awesome to see that the teams are learning as they go. We saw that as Vitas learned the game a little bit throughout the season. We saw as teams were practicing. We saw a lot of over the weekend, as well as in the WTRL TTT, teams letting us know that the kind of practicing that they were doing, getting together and figuring out how to do a TTT well. A lot of course recons going on, so that's been really great to see. Also, as you're saying, we're just getting started. The reality is that Zwift Racing League Season 1, that's what this is. This is season number 1. Looking forward to Season 2, Season 3. You know, as this starts to build out, it's the building, the foundations of building a sport. We have promotions. We've got demotions to come. We've got the reality of climbing ladders, people finding their place amongst the best of the best in this sport, as well as amongst those that are of similar ability. And that's how a sport is built from the ground up. You've got your local basketball courts, you've got your local baseball diamonds, and people start, at young, and you build up a fandom around your favorite racers that are out there. Well, that's similar to what we're starting to see here with the community league that we're broadcasting on Tuesdays. And now with this Premier Division and people being able to move their way up the ranks all the way from D to B to C to D to A, and then maybe up into the Premier Division. It's really awesome to see as we get started here in this season number 1 and start to crown some champions the first go around.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our standings as we wrap up the first ever Zwift Racing League season. This is the points table that shows us how it all sorted out. And you can see a lot of 20s, 19s, and 118 in the mix. That's how you do it. 155 points. Totals up for the win for Canyon Esports. Saris the Pros Closet ending up with the silver medal in second with 146 PO Auto Ceramic Speed in third. Look at Bolt Racing Team there in fourth. Evoke Bike presented by Ensure in fifth. Then we've got Team Swedish Zwifters for sixth. Vitas moves up a couple spots with their ride here today. Great job by Vitas Pro Cycling presented by Brother in seventh. Callis Esport Racing Team in eighth. Arrow in ninth, and then we've got Draft in 10th. So that's the top 10 on our men's league table with Canyon Esports up on the top. And here is No Pins R3R E-Racing Team in 11th, 12th place for Dutch Racing. Turbo in 13th, World Elite Zwifters 14th, Kiss Racing in 15th. Then we have Legion of LA, Trinity Road Racing, Team AHDR, and Team Skyline rounding out our men's league table. Congratulations to all of our racers and teams. Nathan, one thing's for sure, let the recruiting begin, as all of these teams are going to be looking for reinforcements, try to identify maybe what your weak spots were in season one and correct that. You mentioned the community league. I know that a lot of the directors and racers watch those community races looking for the next big talent that they can find coming out of the woodwork and help reinforce their squad.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be something for for anybody who is looking for some strong racers. If they do not make the Premier Division, perhaps some racers out there going to be looking to try and jump into some of the top teams as well as they show the results. But now we are going to be heading on over to the women's racing in just a moment here as they get out on course. But let's take a look at how things went down out in France again in the women's points race, because it was a very hotly contested race last week, Dave.
Yeah, it certainly didn't disappoint as we take a look at the women's peloton here. Melanie Maurer, the Swiss rider, has certainly been a big part of the conversation this season, but you can see the splits came early, and a lot of this had to do with the riding from Caroline Williams as we look now at Lou Bates. Now, Lou, who's already, I would have to say, been one of the most dominant riders in the series. Well, this first bonus sprint really sussed out who came to play, and that was Shayna Paulus there coming over the line first. But then we got down to business, and at this critical sector of the course, this is where we saw riders like Arrows Brevine starting to shine, but knowing that this was going to be a brutal finale out on Petit Boucle, the little circle, and this is the group that was going to be contesting for the win. You take a look around and see who's got numbers in this group, and ultimately it's going to be our 3R no pins rider, Lou Bates, coming across the line for the win, Brevine right there for Arrow. But it was Heino again after things got sorted out, Nathan, on top of the table.
Yeah, and Heino Racing Team here, 140 points, unstoppable. Arrow sneaking up into second place at 124, 123. So that is the battle to be watching out for today in the team time trial. That second place is definitely up for grabs. Don't count out No Pins R3R. They've been on the rise, actually, in these last couple of weeks. So they can have a solid ride out here today, and any mishaps from some of their teams, that top three may be in contention. Now, Kiss Racing Team there are in fifth place. They're battling out with Cryo RDT. 96, tied for sixth with Evoke Bike, presented by Insured, and that is another team to be on the watch out for. You can see those 15s there in round 4, 5, and 6 for Evoke. So perhaps on the rise here, trying to take down Cryo RDT. But Team Swedish Swifters there, 93, tied for 8th with I Race Like a Girl. Another team to be watching out for, perhaps. Stars the Close Closet there in 10th right now. And then for the rest of the top 20, we'll be taking a look here. It looks like it is going to be Canyon Esports there for 11th place with 69 points. TFC there in 12th with 65. Vision E-Racing, 13th place with 56 points. Turbo, 50 points in 14th. Team Fearless, 15. And then it's going to be Velocity Vixen in 16th place. That is going to be your top 16 here. So, Dave, let's go ahead and head on over to some live. Actually, we're going to be taking a look at the teams here in just a second. Dave, about the stands today, I think we have a little bit of an announcement.
Yeah, here we go, Nathan, taking a look at all of the teams that have made up this inaugural season of the ZRL. We did want to note that there had been an adjustment made due to dual recording and riders unable to supply the information necessary that explains that readjustment to the table that you're seeing. But Nathan, these are the teams that are going to be in the mix here today.
Yeah, and as we do look at the top three, the teams here out here today, Evoke and No Pins were the ones that I did highlight, but this is going to be the jerseys to be watching out for with all the team names, so you get a good idea of who each one of the teams are, and you can get familiarity with all their colors. But again, Evoke and No Pins, those are a couple that are outside the top three. I'd definitely be watching out for a solid ride. I'm trying to adjust their current standing. There's a lot of ties out there, as you did see in the leaderboard. But for the top three, of course, in that top spot, it is going to be Team Heino, the unstoppable team, both in the points races as well as the TTT. And these are very familiar names, especially Neelan, Hansen, and Whitelaw. Those three have been racing out on Zwift for years now and have been a lot of in real life competitions for the esports side of Zwift. And then a couple of additions here coming into Zwift Racing League is going to be Alice Lethbridge and Caroline Williams. Caroline Williams, what a startup. Stay-at-home mom who is training definitely like a pro, and been really great to see those two additions there amongst the powerhouses that are the traditional Heino team. But then it's going to be Arrow there, Dave. That's our other highlighted teams, currently second overall.
Yeah, you'd have to say that this is the big danger squad, no doubt about it. Is Brie Vine, Brie Playle, Jen Petnan, Busy Butworth, and Katie Banerjee. They certainly are going to press out here today as Heino looking to run out the season with 8 wins. This is the team that's looking to upset that apple cart for sure, the all-Australian Arrow team. So they also, when you look at today, there's one other team that certainly comes to mind as being very, very dangerous out there. And motivation plays a huge factor today for 2020. So there has been a late addition to this squad as Charlotte Backus scratching. Natalia Franco down in Colombia is going to be added to the squad. Antonina Reznikov out of Israel. Then you've got the breakthrough rider for the 2020 season, Kristen Kolchinsky, Jasmine During, and Shayna Paulus making up this team. That, Nathan, they're going to be very, very dangerous out there. If they can put it all together, they can be the one other team to take a win here in this first ever Zwift Racing League season. They are really, really hungry for that win.
Yeah, I'd be on the watch out for 2020. They've come so close over and over again, looking for the win out there. Without Charlotte out there, it'll be interesting to see how things end up playing out. Charlotte, a get well to her. I believe she's taking a little bit of a rest out there this week and needing some recovery, it sounds like. So, but as we're heading into the racing, that is the story. Arrow versus 2020, or can 2020 take the win? Now we are jumping in with Team Fearless here. It's going to be Dulo, Conabear, Lineker, and then King on the front as they head on through the flats. We'll be looking forward to the sprint comparison to see who went out the fastest out there today, and then compare it throughout the rest of the race to see if whether or not it played out for them. 5.6 watts per kilogram currently on the front, 44 kilometers per hour as they head on out. 159 beats per minute. They're coming in from Melanie King. We'll see. And now as it jumps up into 160, up and out of the saddle to really try and pull on through. And a lot of times in the TTT, Dave, that's what you do when you take your pulls. It's almost like sprinting a lot of times to try and pull through at the much speed as you possibly can, as Lineker now gets a little gap over her team.
Yeah, the rule of thumb when you're on in real life 4-person team time trials is to try to take minute-long pulls, and you adjust that almost double pulls for the top riders on your team, and then have that down to 30 seconds for the riders that are at the other end of that spectrum. But it doesn't work that way out here. You see, everything is intensified, and the pulls will be more like 30 seconds out here. I think, Nathan, when you look at the race today, and pride always going to be a huge factor here. There's no way that Heino doesn't race today to win. They've got a nice buffer as far as points go. But what's going to be interesting is what happens between Arrow and 2020, as those teams are only separated by 1 point. So it's really going to come down to which team beats the other out here today. And if along the way they end up taking the outright win, that's just an added bonus for them as well. There's really 2 ways to look at it. The race on the day and the race for the season here. As we're in with Vision Racing, Jackie Godby's had a very successful season up to this point. Kathy Mashner and Dame Sarah Story. Sarah Story, one of the most decorated paracyclists in the history of the sport.
Yeah, and also named to the World Championship team, actually. So we'll see what Sarah Story can pull off here out there. But it's going to be Vision with Godby on the front, 4.8 watts per kilogram currently coming from her. Only 3 riders, though. So it'll be interesting to see what they can pull off. Are we going to have a Vetus-type situation here? I'm not sure that's going to be happening, though, being the second team out on course, but maybe be able to chase down or hold off some of the other riders out there. Or, Vision, they've been a very strong team in the past here. Maybe they'll be able to pull something off for the final race out here today. And they are battling for whether, they were one of those teams right on the cusp, Dave, for a demotion out there. So they're going to have to be watching out, I think, and try and have as best of a ride as they possibly can. But next to one that we're going to be jumping on in with, I believe it's going to be Team Turbo, as they have McKay on the front chasing down Vision. And this is a solid group here as they count on through. They have Freestad on the back there, 176 beats per minute. But McKay now pulling on through at 4.6. A little bit of an uphill grind. This is that 1% uphill gradient we talk about a lot of times through the flats as they hit this little oasis and got to really punch it to bring as much speed over this little bump in the road as they can.
Yeah, my heart really goes out to the teams that start with 3 riders out here, as it's almost like a double quantum leap. 4 riders is such a significant advantage over 3. And again, they have to be at a level, and that is one of the things that we've really learned with team time trialing is having 1 or 2 strong riders is great, but in a lot of ways, that kind of throwing a cat amongst the pigeons as well, because ultimately having evenly balanced power is the name of the game in this team time trial. Just to bring everybody up to speed who hasn't been with us through the men's race, the time is taken off of the 3rd rider's wheel here. So that's the crux of the situation as we're jumping back in with Canyon Esports, the women's edition, another very, very strong team. Same situation as the men, 27.5 kilometers of racing. We've got a couple checkpoints for you at 10.6K and 17.9, and we're even sneaking in a little bonus split there at the arch as they do more than 1 lap on Watopia's Waistband. There's about a little more than 2 kilometers of racing that leads them through the finish line, so they get to preview the last couple kilometers of the course right at the start. And we talked how critical a fast start is out here, and it looks like Canyon Esports has done exactly that.
Pins R3R coming through 4 seconds up. It took them 3:15 to get through. So that starts giving you an idea of exactly how the teams are going out and what kind of time it takes them to get through that first kilometer or so of racing. Aero Women's, they're having a solid ride up ahead of Cryo RDT by about 4.5 seconds or so. Very tightly contested there for that first fastest starter whole shot between Cryo RDT, Team Swedish Swifters, and Evo. Interesting to see with only 3 riders there, Vision E racing 10 seconds back, already losing time. It goes to show how having less riders out on course, especially those flatter sections, can really slow things down. So jumping in with Heino, though, I have a feeling we're going to see a very different situation. Look at that, 1.7 already as 2020 are losing a little bit of time. Now, I did get a message just coming through, Dave, and Charlotte may not be on the bike today, but I'm being told that she is on the DS. So she is the director sportif and coaching the ladies through over at 2020 to try and get them the best tactics as they possibly can and keep everybody well organized, because when you got your head down hammering into those orange numbers, you definitely need someone in your ear to let you know what's next.
Well, that's going to be huge today, and it looks like it's paying off when you talk about Charlotte Backus DSing, because the team is off to a very good start. So you have to remember that Heino has been the class of the league without any doubt. They haven't lost a race since we started. Now, and again, they don't plan on losing a race out of all 8 either. 2020, their biggest concern here has to be Aero, and they've got about 4 seconds advantage. That's only a couple K in. That is a really good indicator for 2020 out here. As a matter of fact, I would be much more worried about what's happening behind them rather than Heino right now, because they're fighting to get second place back after what was a tough race last week. They ended up losing some points that they didn't anticipate losing, moving them down from second to third. So it would be a nice kick save if they could find their way in second when the league is wrapped up here today. And we'll know in about half an hour. We're going to jump in actually with 2020 and get a look at the team. That's going to be Kristen Kolchinski. She's been taking monster pulls out here. She and Antonina Reznikov were big additions to this squad, as Shayna Paulus has been a cornerstone on this team for years. There's Olympic bronze medalist Jasmine During, and I mentioned the Colombian Natalia Franco joining the squad here. Looking good, Nathan, all 5 riders together.
All 5 together, and from what I'm seeing on the time splits here, I believe they are doing exactly what they need to do out here today. Currently on the front, it is about a 44 kilometers per hour here with Christian Kolchinski. Now Reznikov pulling on through. Those are the 2 new additions out of the community racing that did get picked up by 2020 over this past summer, heading into the Zwift Racing League. Now, as you do see Franco there, 5.6 watts per kilogram. Natalia Franco, I am being told, she is racing today from a bike shop in Colombia, actually. Having a little bit of problems with the Zoom call, I believe, simply because of some Wi-Fi. So that's the reason why we do not have her on the video out there today. I do believe, good to see, though, that she was able to get hooked up and jump on in with the riders here for this TTT out here today, as Reznikov, now out of Israel, takes that pull through at 5.8 watts per kilogram. Little uphill grind as Paula stays on at 152, looking very calm at this point. Jasmine During, look at the focus on During's face there, just making sure that she is exactly where she needs to be right now at 222 watts. I think this team is really on, really on point out here today, and having Charlotte in their ears, I think, is going to be very motivating. And she is a really great coach. In real life, she coaches athletes, and now coaching athletes through this TTT with so much on the line, it's really got to be rewarding.
When Jasmine During gets off the bike, she's going to walk around in a clockwise circle for the next half hour if she doesn't move her monitor directly in front of her there. As we take a look now at the Aero team, this is the team that's locked in this battle right now with 2020 for second overall on the season. And it's going to come down to seconds out here. This is a motivated squad of Australians here, Nathan. Let's see if they get the speed here. As they will have heard that they were a couple seconds behind at that very, very early, I'd almost call that a preliminary time check that we were looking at from 2.2K in. We're going to jump in. There's Lou Bates. I have to say, Lou has been the big star of this first ever ZRL season. No Pins R3R,
yeah,
the team
and I'd be watching out for No Pins. No Pins R3R. This is a team on the rise. I believe they were sitting about 4th overall coming in here. And so I'd be watching out for No Pins R3R for a breakout ride out here. Lou Bates, she's going to be their powerhouse. But I think all the rest of the riders, when one rider kind of sets the bar real high, there is that reality, Dave, that the rest of the riders, they start to ride into form right alongside of that rider a lot of times. And I think when Lou Bates was taking out those early races, I think the rest of the team went, okay, we got a chance here, and we're going to try and match our teammates' level.
Yeah, there is no doubt, Nathan, exactly what you said. When you have a rider whose success begets success, and once you start to get that vibe, it's spreads amongst the team, and clearly it's working that way for No Pins R3R.
Now we are jumping in with Fearless here at the first intermediate check as Conabear now comes on through, it looks like, and we'll get the first checkpoint as it looks like Vision have closed down some time now. Solid ride coming through from Vision now as Story sitting on the back here as they come through this little riser and take the left-hand turn away from Titans Grove, but maybe some serious firepower coming in here today. Surprising to see how close they are to Fearless already.
In with Helen McKay right now. This is, I think we're going to get a look. All right, we are. So these are the first teams coming through that split here. Intermediate 1 at 10.6K. In with TFC now. So these are the first teams to take the start, but everything is really compact out on this course. It's not going to be long till our top teams are coming through and we get a good look at the race story here.
Yeah, Kristen Falconer coming on through Canyon Esports now, as you do see them heading on toward their intermediate check here. Kristen Falk followed up closely by number 90 there. That I think we're going to be looking through a few more of the teams here in just a second there. Saris, Kiss Racing Team, Heino, Team Swedish Swifters, Arrow, Women's and Evoke, all still to come through. Christy Tracy here, a very familiar name in the community of Zwift on the platform in the social medias as well. So great to see. And she's got one of the coolest setups in the entire world. I mean, it's a full-on esports setup, that's for sure. Made for streaming, made for interaction on Discord, hanging out in the team bus. And I'll be watching out, for they'll be holding on, I think. They have a competitive day out here today. But, I raced like a girl right on the heels, but a little separation here. Not something you'd usually see. Kessler looking to get back on the wheels as looks like a little bit of a drop off from the main team here from Race Like a Girl. This is one of the teams, Dave, in the WTRL TTT on Thursdays that's very organized, usually is challenging for that top spot. So I'm surprised to see this disorganization.
Yeah, they say that repetition is the mother of learning, and the teams that have been participating in the WTRL had a huge leg up as they just took the fastest time through that split, even though it was a little chaotic. They're still motoring out there. So moving through it just a little bit quicker than Saris the Pros Closet, but now you start wondering, how about Swedish Swifters? Will they be faster at that split? Now, that I Race Like a Girl time, we're expecting to see that being bettered. Will it be the Swedes here doing it?
Yeah, and with I Race Like a Girl there, maybe the little bit of separation we saw was perhaps to do with the way they attacked this climb. Leaving Fuego Flats as they do take that right-hand turn over towards Titans Grove. I think the reality is they were just hammering, knowing that section, of course, was so important to take as much time as possible. Now we do see Kolchinsky here on the front for 2020 as they just get passed by Heino, the current league leaders, currently in first place. During here needs to back off a little bit now. She is an addition to the team out here today. Maybe needs a little bit of information given, saying, no, you cannot draft on the other riders. Got to back off. Let the riders come through as Kolchinsky now takes over at the front. During will come back most likely as they head into the climb. The interesting thing, though, coming into the climb here is that the riders are going to be putting in everything they can over the top here. And this 2020 team has some serious climbers, specifically Kolchinsky, who is very punchy. But Heino, they've got power all around, and I have a feeling they'll still just start to walk away from the rest of from 2020. So the question is, where is Arrow in comparison to 2020, and will Heino be catching them soon?
The odds are pretty good they will, to tell you the truth. That's how good Heino is. As we're going back now, that's going to be Eiley Gardner that we're looking at. But Nathan, now my concern for 2020 isn't so much that they're getting caught by Heino, because they really are in a pitched battle for second place overall, as Heino has, as you said, they've walked away with this season. But Kiss Racing, a new fast time there at 14:47, so they're almost 5 seconds. And now we've got a new faster time, and it's just going to get better and better. There's no doubt that Heino is going to have the fastest time of all, as we're in with Arrow right now.
Yeah, and this is very close. You do see this section, of course, that Arrow is on, and Brie Vine hammering away, one of the top riders. I believe she actually took down the NRS down in Australia, so she's going to be pulling on through and be one of the stronger riders amongst this Arrow team. But the reality is right behind them, we saw Heino entering this same section, of course, just moments ago, and 2020 were right on their heels. So 2020 are going to be very confident, I think, because of that catch that's going to be happening in just a moment for Heino, because they're not too far behind that catch coming in from Heino. Currently looking at this leaderboard with no pins, R3R on the top. We'll see how Arrow pulls off, but we're going to most likely see a very quick changeup coming on through from Heino in just a moment at the top spot.
Wow, what a ride we are witnessing here from Heino. This is that command performance. They call the group that travels with the queen or the king the Vanguard. Well, this is the Vanguard right here. There's no one in the world better than Heino, and they're about to catch the second team out here. And they're not catching dead weight. They're catching the top teams out here. So they are riding at another level. We're back in with 2020 now. So this is the real bike race here, folks. I really want to focus now on what's going on with the 2020 squad and Arrow. So they've both seen Heino go by them. That's neither here nor there at this point. Only 1 point separating them after 7 races in our ZRL season. So again, the red jersey is going to be Heino. They have set the standard without any doubt, and they're back at it today. Meet the new boss. It's the same as the old boss 8 weeks in a row. So Heino in red, that team is out of this world. It looks like No Pins R3R is having an incredible ride here today, but maybe even more importantly, we're waiting for that Arrow split. So for 2020, No Pins being in front of them isn't really a huge problem, but that's Heino right behind Arrow here now. So even Arrow is going to get a taste of what the Heino wattage machine is like, as there they go. Wow, what a ride. I mean, we're watching history being made out here, Nathan, in the ZRL. As I don't know that another team will ever be able to do what Heino has done, and that is sweeping the floor clean throughout 8 weeks of racing. They've had their cake. They're eating it too. They're going to have your cake, Nathan.
They're going to need all the cake in the world after this kind of a ride here to refuel all the glycogen being burned out of the legs as Vicky Nealon pulls on through. And this is a section, of course, where you can really gain a lot of speed if somebody just punch through. As you see a lot of the riders here now, a little bit of a super tuck there in the back there. Hansen getting a little bit of a rest. Arrow, they're hanging on for just a moment. Interesting enough. Now they're going to start walking away, though, as they're going to give a gap, it looks like, as Caroline Williams comes on through. A little bit of a talking point here. Caroline Williams, I believe, did a 200-kilometer ride yesterday. As just a chill ride. But I mean, to give you an idea of the kind of training these ladies are putting in, they are fully committed to this platform, full on. Alice Lethbridge sitting on the wheel there, as you can see. Vicky Whitelaw, that straight line as you were talking about earlier, Dave, about the best way when you've got 5 riders out on course to just hold on to that speed, get the rest in, and pull on through. This is the top cream of the crop right now. They've won every race and looks like they're going to do it again with ease. Well, I mean, the reality is you still got to put the power down. You got to put the sweat in, but it looks like they're walking away with another one.
Well, if the positions stay as they are, Arrow will have dropped from 4th to 2nd from that intermediate 1 check. So Arrow is the team right now that's trending in the right direction, and they're the team that controls their own destiny here as well when you talk about that battle with 2020. So, Nathan, advantage to the Australians right now is what the data is telling us. Heino's not worried at all about this.
That's
what we're hearing
here then is going to be that 2020 are going to have some time to make up. That's for sure. I'm seeing a 527 currently back from the leader and a 522 currently back from the leader for Arrow. So it looks like for me 5 seconds difference here between 2020 and Arrow currently on the splits here. We'll have to wait and see, though, how it ends up playing on the official splits as they come through the intermediate check number 2. I am seeing 2020 at a solid 35 to 36 kilometers per hour through this next section that they're on. But we're still looking at Heino here as they come on through what I like to call the sticky mud section. This is going to be the dirt section out on course. It makes it a little more difficult. And as we do jump back in with Fearless, they're heading toward intermediate check number 2. We'll be bringing those on in just a second and see how Fearless matches up against the rest of the field.
Yeah, it feels like you're racing on wet carpet. Just the amount of watts that gets absorbed into the road through here. That's the check arch that we're looking for here. So we'll start looking at more and more times now that tell us the story. As 27.5 kilometers of racing, so they're under 10K to go right now. This is where you just have to let it rip, as we were anticipating for these teams that are really trying to move up on the table here. You're going to have to sacrifice a rider along the way to make a difference out here.
Yeah, and as we head on toward the volcano here, we do see that 2020 have made the catch that they're looking for here, and that's got to put some smiles on some faces here, at least on 2020. But Arrow now not going to be having the ride that they were looking for to hold on to a better podium spot. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Now, Paulus, though, walking away a little bit here. She's got to back off, or perhaps at least Kolchinski pull the rest of the riders forward as Franco hangs on here. Jasmine During there getting a little bit sticky between the riders. There's a little grind here, a little bit of a bump as they take a left-hand turn away from the marina and out over toward the S-turns. This should separate the riders as they tend to kick a little bit through this section and then pull some speed on through the rest of this little bit of a section here as we head on back into our story. And Vision is, now we do see Vision overtaking Fearless. Interesting enough to see is they are having an amazing day out here.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Shayna Paulus tried to bring the team through with some speed, and then it just, the algorithm kicked in and got everybody discombobulated there. But again, Fearless and Vision, the teams, that's Vision that we're looking at right now with Dame Sarah Story right in the middle of your screen. So they're starting to ramp it up out there.
Yeah, really interesting ride here coming in from Vision with only 3 riders out there today. But Story here obviously super motivated. Now we are seeing Sarsa Pro's Closet there 16 seconds back from I Race Like a Girl. I Race Like a Girl taking 4 spots back. It looks like 24:51 at the intermediate 2. Vision E-Racing here with only 3 riders, only 16 seconds back and challenging Sarsa Pro's Closet actually. 2 seconds difference between them and TFC. Canon Esports there 22 seconds back there. Team Fearless there, we are seeing that 113 as they were just caught in Turbo in 7th place. Currently, that's the current situation. The rest of the team still to come through at that intermediate check number 2 at 18K as we look at Deborah Sluice Parker to make their way on the downhill here. That is a little bit of a bump they just went through after the S-turns. A very difficult section of course, actually. The S-turns are falls flat at 1 to 2% gradient as they leave Ocean Boulevard and then head on over to a left-hand turn toward the Italian Village. These little bumps here, they can gain a lot of speed, but it's a 80% punch, essentially, sprint a lot of times if you want to get into the 50-plus kilometers per hour. It looks like they're doing a good job of that. This racing team coming toward their intermediate 2. Here's Evoke with Mallory McRoasty hanging on in the back.
Second place, Evok right now, just 7 seconds back here as they're sandwiched in between. So I Race Like a Girl's having a solid ride out here today. They're going to be happy with the way things have played out. Sarah's the Pros Closet sitting in 3rd. Again, we've got some very fast teams still to come through that second checkpoint at almost 18 kilometers in, but I Race Like a Girl, the fastest time at the 24:51, 7 seconds back is Evok. So all right, this one is really shaping up to be close here. It's going to be interesting to see how fast Hino is, remembering they've already caught 2 teams out there today, Nathan. So they are absolutely flying. And to be fair, it looks like 2020 is having the day that they were looking for as well, as they would love to reclaim 2nd place, and they're on their way to doing that. Kiss now, a new fastest time here, just about 1.5 seconds faster than I Race Like a Girl here. So let's continue to jump in.
That there's a reality, Dave, at the top end here, though, between the likes of No Pins, R3R, Hino, 2020, Arrow. These top teams out here today, I think, are showing that they're a level above. And looking at No Pins, R3R, they're having really a ride of a lifetime out here today. They may challenge for a podium. And with that, we may see a bump up coming from No Pins R3R. There was, I'm not sure exactly what the point stands. I have to take a look back at it, but I have a feeling that there's some serious motivation from No Pins R3R out there today, and that is a solid 18 seconds. But there's a reality here with Hino, though. I mean, this is almost a procession. You're thinking the final day, of a Grand Tour type situation, and a procession to the line, making it happen as they've won every single race, and this is going to be 8 for 8, it looks like, across the line for Team Hino.
Yeah, for these women, losing is just not an option. This has been truly, when you look at the ZRL and what this season has been about, it's not about one individual rider. And Nathan, going back to what you were saying about No Pins R3R, I think it's extremely cool to as you noted, the way the other riders on that team have really stepped up their game, being motivated by what Lou Bates has been doing. Well, Heino didn't need that. All the riders on that team operate at such a high level. There's no doubt that that team has figured out precision, accountability to go along with power and grace. So they have definitely set the standard out here. This is a team that is looking now, sitting in the right now in second on the season, and they're going to look to fight to hold on to that spot. But right now, it's not looking great because 2020's on an incredible ride today. But we're back in. Bree Vine taking a monster pull right now for the Australians on Aero.
Yeah, and
there's
Bree Vine,
the
I think, probably trying to do everything she possibly can at this point to try and bring back some time. Is 122. They're going to need every place that they can get to try and hold on at this point, because No Pins R3R are having a ride of a lifetime out here, as I said earlier. 46.68. They are only 2 seconds behind 2020. It is in the cards right now for No Pins to take a second overall and unseat 2020 from that second place position right now with only 2 seconds behind him. That's the real story, is those two teams at this point. Heino walking away as they usually do, but as you can see, if they need to hold on 2020 here against No Pins. But No Pins, if they take that over, they could maybe get some difference here in their league standings.
Unfortunately, Aero has dropped way down. So they are taking on water like the Titanic when you look at the fact that they are in 8th place. So that's a bit of a surprise. I expected them to be right there with 2020 today. But it doesn't look like they're having the day that they're looking for. Where 2020, however, now it looks like that race for second is going to be very, very interesting. Both just 2 seconds separating No Pins from 2020.
Yeah, so 2020, there's a 1 point difference between 2020 and Aero currently. 123 and 124 points. Aero currently sitting second overall at 124. 2020 at 123. But the real exciting thing right behind that competition, which was an unexpected competition, but we called it out prior, was that No Pins R3R E-Racing team at 118 points. Now, if you think about the points on the day, you got 20, 19, 17, all the way down to 15 points, right? That is we're looking at a 7, let's see, 1, 2, we're looking at we got a point difference here of 6 points currently at this point. Could we have a tie? And then I believe the win goes to the last win. So it could be a situation where No Pins R3R walk away. If they can beat 2020 to the line and get the distance they need between themselves and Aero, they end up in the top 3 on the podium on the day. That would be out of this world if they were able to pull that off, because Aero is not having the day and they need to come back by a lot of spots. It's their third place to lose right now, Aero, if they do not bring some of this time back now. Every second matters. You look at where they stand right now. It isn't just get across the line, settle for third. Their third place is also on the line if they don't move forward.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that being the storyline out here today. We're back in with the Vision Racing team right now. Jackie Godby, Kathy Mashner, and Sarah Story. But yeah, Nathan, that is really a bit of a surprise, I must say, as I expected Aero and 2020 to be fighting it all the way to the line. But definitely a new storyline is developing here in the final race, and that really does speak to what a series is all about. It's not over until you cross the finish line the final time. And that R3R team, if they can end up third in the season, that is an absolute stunner. Good for them. That's going to be a real battle here that we'll be watching over the next 10 minutes or so. Vision is already down to just a little over 3 kilometers to the line here. These three have raced their hearts out today. 3 big engines on this team. You're not going to find 3 riders that fight harder than this. 3 that fought like 5.
Yeah, and you do see Jackie Wadby now taking a little bit of a pull. Sarah Story now backing off. She's all done on the front there. Kathy Mockner. I just saw the expression on Kathy's face there. She looked like she was so all in for her team at that moment there, just trying to do everything she can. This is a team currently in 13th place out of 16, Dave. We're talking about promotions and demotions here at this point too, at 56 points, being chased by Turbo, Team Fearless, Philosophy Vixen, and Fearless is right ahead of them. That's one of the teams that they're thinking about in the battle right now for these placings when it comes to the demotion out of the Premier League. So there is still a competition going on at the front end of this race here right now for the first starters, those who are seeded the lowest that went out first here, with TFC also in 12th place at 65 points. Quite a few points ahead of Vision E Racing, but we'll see how things play out at the end of the day, because there's a pretty big spread in the points across all the riders, especially if Vision pull out some sort of a top 5 or something like that today.
Yeah, you can see these teams are not taking it lightly at all as they fight to stay up in the Premier Division. And that's the name of the game here, is every team has a plan for the future. As we move now back in with Canyon Esports, Cecile, Kristen, Mary, and Ione, is this team again fighting hard out here. They're kind of right in the middle of this sandwich, Nathan. They're not worried about being demoted here, but they're certainly looking to get a top 5 result today for Canyon Esports.
Yeah, you do see Ione Johnson there. She's more of a sprinter out there, most likely put in some big digs up front. And now it's going to be Cecile, Kristen Falk, as well as Mary Wilkinson trying to just bring things to the line. As you look at Lejeune there, 6.2. And the little, you can tell when someone's really suffering and they've got that tick, that little head bob to the right or to the left, knowing they're trying to just edge out every last watt that they can. And I do the same, something very similar, Dave, when I'm like, well, where can I find just a little more suffering out of myself when I just push my head to the left or to the right there? It's a real telltale sign. It is. It really is.
Yeah, you know that's Lenny Ramsey up and out of the saddle now as she is really digging in here. So that's a really good example, right? You can see Lenny Ramsey there. She's on the front, but now look at the watts that she was making, well over 300. Heart rate really low, all things considered, as that is one fit athlete. So Ramsey's going to come off the front right now. You really do get a good look at the rotation. And so that's going to be Carly Johan now taking over on the front. Could be a little bit smoother than that. Actually, not too bad. Meredith Kessler now. They've been putting up some good splits out there when you talk about Sisu, I Race Like a Girl. Not all that far from the finish. We're jumping back in with Saris, the pros closet. That's going to be Takashita, Mason. We talked about Christy Tracy. Looks like they're going to get 4 riders to the line. Polly Mason, Christy Tracy, Kai Takashita, Fiona Schroeder out of Germany, coming back from a broken collarbone, Nathan. Actually, this is the first time we've really seen her back racing at this level in a while. So good to see Fiona, the young, talented German rider, back.
Yeah, Fiona Schrader looks like she was one of the riders dropped off now. Probably having a little communication going on there. As now we do see it's going to be 4 to the line. Christy Tracy, always well known for that TTT almost type position that she has on the bike there at 170 beats per minute as she pulls on through. Now it looks like Mason maybe making her way backwards. Takashita actually is the one taking a pull.
She's so
Look
arrow.
At that effort there.
She's so arrow, she's not even on the
4
screen.
points.
Yeah.
That's going to be from the Tracy household, where the whole full-on esports studio is set up there. Pretty amazing setup that they got as they do come into the 1 kilometer banner to go, as we start to get some times coming on through. And this is going to be Team TFC with Peel taking a back seat, as it looks like it's going to be Becky Seal who's taking a pull at 6+ watts per kilogram, currently at 45 kilometers per hour. And they are just a little ways ahead of Team Fearless. I believe they caught Fearless out there today. As TFC make their way to the line, you can see Fearless right behind them. Coming in for their finish is Vision with the 38.51. I believe caught both of those teams out there today. So they had a solid
with
ride
3
with
riders.
Canyon Esports.
Yeah.
It's led out by Kristen Falk. Yeah, with only 3 riders. Huge ride from Vision there, Dave.
Yeah, that deserves an asterisk next to it for that fact, as we're seeing more teams coming across the line now. So it'll be a steady stream of finishers here. And the real story is going to be, does 2020, so 2 stories to watch now. It looks like 2020 should be in pretty good shape to move up into second on the season here. What's going to happen with no pins, R3R, as Nathan was noting? That might come down to a tie, deadlocked on points if things play out the way they are right now. We'll see. Aero women's team out of Australia might be able to bring back a couple of places here. Heino might have passed 3 teams out here today as we're into what should be the final kilometer or so for Saris, the pros closet.
Yeah, and you do see this is the final kilometer position changes that you do see on the right-hand side when it comes to the little green arrows there. So Vision E-Racing in the final kilometers were able to make up 2 places. Team TFC moved up 2 places. Canyon Esports 4 places, actually. Team Fearless 4 places. So very cool new data that we have on screen there as I Race Like a Girl comes on through 13 seconds up from Vision E-Racing. Vision E-Racing, though, I Raced Like a Girl with solid times at intermediate 1 and 2. So I have a feeling Vision E-Racing are going to have a walkaway, a standout ride out there today as they really were able to walk away from the teams that they're battling with at the bottom half of the leaderboard in the league. So solid ride again by Vision E-Racing. And it's showing that I believe the likes of Sarah Story have been doing some Zwifting recently, most likely coming into World Championship.
Yeah, a motivated Sarah Story, that's for sure. And I bet you they do some recruiting when you talk about that Vision team. It's where Jackie Godby representing the United States as well on that team. So they have a couple of riders that'll be heading to Worlds, which is a massive deal for in the world of esports as we take a look. So I Race Like a Girl with that 38, the fastest time at this point. So they do get inside of that time that Vision had up on top of the leaderboard. TFC currently sitting in 3rd, but it's not going to be long until we see the standard set by Heino out here.
Yeah, and we do see KRT making their way through the line as it's going to be Illy Gardner, their standout rider in the scratch races, taken for a sprint. It's what you'd expect to see from Gardner being their all-star, I would say, is Cryo RDT, though, takes down I Raced Like a Girl by 4 seconds. That is a huge comeback from Cryo RDT. They were pretty far back at the second intermediates check, so huge ride. Now, there it is. No pins R3R across the line. The question is, what did they pull off against Aero? Because they've got a lot to go for, but now here comes Heino. There's the top, as you would say, the gold standard. I think you called it the unattainable standard.
Yeah, I would have to stick with that. So Nathan No Pins has just come through. So they were only 1:19 back. So again, that's 1 minute and 19 seconds back on Heino. So Heino catching 2. We're in now. So Jasmine During, unfortunately, just going off the front. Time taken off the 3rd rider's wheel.
Doesn't matter.
Is
That's
2020.
fine. That's fine. They just need to sprint. They just need to sprint. Now, everything's on the line right here for 2020 versus... this is actually about Aero, though. That's the thing. Because they've done it. 2020 have done what they need to do, most likely, barring... something crazy from Aero, which it's impossible at this point. They've been caught
and passed
The
Aero.
question is, so the question really is what happened between 2020 and No Pins, and 2020 brought it back. So will it be enough distance now? Because that affects this result for Aero. Aero need to get across the line as close as they can to No Pin.
So it actually is good for Aero that 2020 beats No Pins, as that takes another point off of the table for them. And so ultimately 2020 doing, who would have thought when this one was done and dusted that 2020 getting second would actually help out Aero? As I think that you nailed it, Nathan. We'll see. They're already crunching the numbers. What a season.
6 places?
Oh. That's too much.
7
they
places?
did it.
I
No
think that's
pins.
1 point. I think that's 1 point. That might be it.
That's
We'll have to wait, though. We'll have to wait.
unbelievable.
I want to get some unofficial, but it looks like that 7 points will be enough because it was a 6-point spread. No Pins R3R may have just put themselves in the top 3.
That is why in the sport of bike racing, you never give up. You never stop fighting. Because, Nathan, that's absolutely incredible. I don't think anybody starting the day would have expected to see the wheels come off for Aero the way they did, and No Pins stepping up. That's an amazing ride for No Pins R3R to end up in third today. Credit where it's due, 2020 did what they needed to do to take second place back, and that is the true sign of a champion. When you get knocked down, like they did last week, how do you respond? Do you sulk? Do you start fighting amongst the team and pointing fingers, or do you say, we're going to rock up and deliver? And they certainly rocked up. Great job by 2020. This is the team, though, that had the stunner of a ride today. Third place on the day, but we think they might have climbed the table up into the podium for the overall. No Pins, Lou Bates and company. Great job today.
Yeah, amazing job from No Pins R3R. Both, this team has really put it together over the last couple of weeks here. And we saw them on the rise, but now this is the champions. Hansen pulling on through as they took down the whole day, and they come on through almost half the field out today as they passed up Arrow here, heading on over into Ocean Boulevard. Flying along. Here's TFC finishing up on the day with Peel, and then we do have the rest of the riders finishing it up, as we did have a very close race, it looked like, between Team Fearless and Canyon Esports across the line. There's I Race Like a Girl, and there's Team Swedish Swifters, and the rest of the teams coming along for that final kilometer. Kiss Racing Team with Illy Gardner, and there's No Pins R3R holding on to their third place overall. Team Hino taking the win, and this was the ride from Team 2020, pulling back those precious seconds in order to take second overall on the day, as they came across the line with 5 riders. And I was told there was a little bit of a dropout early on from Natalia Franco. So even with a little bit of a struggle early on, able to bring things back together and come across with 5. And there is Team Arrow with a struggle of a day. And Bree Vine maybe a little bit frustrating as we come into the results. Here we go, Dave. Hino at the top.
Yeah, and it is 2020. 1 minute, 13 seconds back. You can see how close it was for second here, as it's a 1:19 back. Only 6 seconds behind 2020 for No Pins R3R. Memorable ride out there today. Kiss Racing in fourth. Cryo RDT in fifth. I Race Like a Girl fights their way up into sixth today. Evoke presented by Insured in seventh. Vision Racing with 3 riders finding the top 8. Great job, Vision. TFC in ninth. And then Arrow Women's Team ending up in 10th. This is on the 8th day of racing for our series here. I think we're going to roll a little bit deeper. Take a look at 11th is Team Swedish Swifters. Saris the Pros Closet into 12th. Canyon Esports in 13th. Team Fearless 14th. And Turbo in 15th. And those spots do matter, as Nathan was talking about the promotions and the demotions that happen. And we're right to that point as we wrap up 8 fantastic weeks of racing here in the ZRL, and I'm happy that we get to put paid, Nathan, with a team time trial. This has become a signature event here in the esports platform that we love so much, and there it is, perfect 20s across the top, leaving no doubt about it. Hino, you are the queens of esports racing.
Yeah, Team Hino there, 20s all across the board, 160 points. You can't get better than that. And it's going to be Team 2020 on the comeback. They end up holding down for second place. They actually were in third coming into the day, so an amazing ride for them with 142. No Pins R3R, they made it happen by 1 point. That is a 7-point leap over Arrow, who ended up dropping down off of the podium into 4th place there. So Arrow, they're in 4th, and followed up by Kiss Racing Team, solidifying themselves in 5th. Then it's going to be 6th place to Cryo RDT. Evoke Bike, presented by Insured, in 7th. I Race Like a Girl in 8th. Team Swedish Swifters in 9th. And Sars the Pros Closet in 10th. Interesting to see how the teams sorted out the ties so far in that top 10. And then a tie here in TFC and Canyon Esports. That is going to be provisional, but it'd be interesting to see between those two who took first on the day, as that does get sorted out. Vision E-Racing here, 13th place, followed up by Turbo, 14th. Team Fearless, 15th place. Velocity Vixen rounding out the top 16. And that's going to be the standings in our Season 1 for the Zwift Racing League in the Premier Division. Heino walks away with it 2020, battling to try and take a single win from Heino, unable to do so throughout the season so far. And then the battle for third, Arrow. Halfway through, we saw them on the rise, figuring some things out, and then struggling in the second half, and it goes into the final race, just unable to hold on as no pins R3R. They come from a great second half steam engine, essentially, and showing us that steam engine here in the TTT today.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Nathan, when you compare and contrast out here. When we were talking about the men's race and the Vitas team, well, they wish it was all team time trials. They'd probably be one of the 3 best teams in the league if that were the case. And the exact opposite goes for the Aero team, as they would wish that this was scratch or points racing every week. They never finished for worse than 3rd place when we were racing in the standard format road racing. But, the encouraging thing for them is, as you can see, they had an 11th and a 12th in the team time trial. There's room for them to get better there. And if they can get a lot better, they will be one of the teams that will really be challenging Heino. So we've all got some work to do. Sometimes it's not what your strengths are, it's what your weaknesses are. And that's what you need to work on. We learned a lot through this season, that's for sure. But I think really the biggest takeaway for me, Nathan, was the teams that did their homework, the teams that have been actively recruiting, they had a big leg up this season. And knowing how to team time trial from week 1 made a huge difference by the time it was all sorted out.
Yeah, it's made an amazing difference as far as how the education has gone. I think that there's a lot of teams that figured out what to do, how to do it. It's a new format of racing. It isn't just scratch. A lot of Zwift racing for years has been just first across the line kind of racing. This really changed things up and made the teams have to work together in new kinds of ways. And I think that's made things really interesting as far as the esports side of things goes. And it's also, brought out a lot of different talents, and who fits where on a team and why is always something essential to all sports when it comes to team sports. Now, also, if you didn't know this, you can participate in the Zwift Racing League. Season 2, be on the watch out for that. Registration is opened up. Go check that out. And Season 2 is going to be coming at you in 2021, early on in 2021 in January. So be on the watch out for that. Now, you can also check out the Community League as well of the Zwift Racing League. We broadcast that over on Zwift Community Live. We've got the APAC division. We've got the European, Middle East, Africa, as well as the Americas, East and West. And all of those still have 2 more weeks of racing. There's 10 races total in the Zwift Community League. So go ahead and check that out over on ZCL. Me and Dave, we're going to be on that tomorrow for a couple of broadcasts. We're also going to be having Kate Bates and Anna Russell, as well as Dave and Kate, on for a couple of the broadcasts as well. So Dave, it's been really exciting, and we've got the reality of how you develop sport on a grassroots level, because some of those are going to be coming, some of those top teams in the A's, they're going to be coming up into the Premier Division, and a couple of teams in the Premier Division are going to be demoted down. So there's a lot on the line still in the Zwift Community League.
Absolutely. And you better believe that the team directors are watching these community league races, as every team needs reinforcements. You try to plug in the holes, and yeah, who doesn't need a couple strong riders for their team for season 2? So as we wrap up what was an amazing 8 weeks here in the Premier League, we saw unbelievable racing from tip to tail. We saw some breakthrough stars come out of this league. We saw dominant performances by the top teams. I would have to say that what Heino has done out here and Canyon Esports is nothing short of command performances. They've set a very high standard. But Nathan, no one stays as queen or queen of the hill forever. And these teams are going to be redoubling their efforts as we look forward to the next season. I would send you to the world of Zwift. Our man, OJ Borge, does an incredible job of covering all of the athletes and events. We have a lot to look forward to. As Nathan said, we'll be back at it tomorrow with the Community League. There's the Nations Challenge coming up on December 4th and 5th, and then the World Championships. And quite a few of the riders that we've had in the ZRL will get a chance to show what they've got against the best in the World Tour riders that are going to be showing up on December 9th. So looking back, that was incredible. But Nathan, we're just getting started.
Just getting started. Yeah, and the World of Zwift, that releases at the end of the week. It catches everything that's gone on in the Zwift Racing League, as well as look forward to the next courses and things that are to come in the World of Zwift, as well as on the tri side of things, because there is some pro tri series races going on as well. You can also go check out what the Zwift Racing League is all about over on GCN. They just released a video that we helped produce with them for their talents. Not all the hosts, but some of the hosts took place last week out in France in the points race and battled it out in one of the top European editions. And if you want to check out what it's all about and how hard some of the top A stuff is, that was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to be a part of. So you can go check that out as well. But it's been a great racing season so far. The first 8 races are done. We've crowned our champions now. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you. I'm Nathan Guerra. This is Dave Toll. We'll see you tomorrow out on Zwift Community Live for all the community divisions. But as always, everybody, ride on.